You're listening to the Reds Podcast.
This is episode number 55. You've got a lot of email, and it's a good thing, but it can also be overwhelming. On this episode, we talk about how to manage the email, how to be more efficient with getting messages back, responding to people, and sometimes not responding at all. That's coming up on this episode of the Red Podcast.
This is the Red Podcast. Real entrepreneur development. Make more money, work less, and live a life of freedom. No BS advice that really works. Here's your hosts, David Hooper and Laurel Staples.
Lots of people have written in. They're wondering about how we do Red Podcast. We've talked a little bit about this before. Basically, we have a list of bullet points, and the whole thing is ad-libbed. One of the reasons we're able to do this is simply practice. We've talked about Toastmasters on here before. That's a great way to practice ad-libs. They've got something there called Table Topics, where basically somebody gives you a topic and you've got to riff on it for a minute, 2 minutes max, without any kind of notes, without any kind of prep. And I actually got an application for my iPhone from the App Store, Laurel, and it's called Table Topics. I'm going to ask you one right now. We're going to play a game right here at the beginning of Red Podcast. Because you hate this.
Yeah, I have to say that that's my least favorite part of our Toastmasters meeting. I'm great with going up there with a prepared speech or having bullet points to talk about, but just riffing, not so good. But I'm up for it. I'm game. Let's do it.
Okay. This is a great question. I think it's going to work for you. Is it more important to do good or to avoid doing bad?
That is a good question. I think it's more important to do good. I think that you have to be willing to make mistakes in order to do that good. And that means doing some bad, probably along the way, but embracing the fact that you want to put out something good in the world, that you want to focus on what you want and not focus on what you don't want. Because when you focus on what you want and you have your end goal to do good or create good or do whatever you want to do in mind, you're more likely to map out a path to that instead of focusing on, oh, I don't want to do bad. I don't want to do this. I don't want this. So I would say doing good.
That's a good entrepreneurial way to look at that. I think entrepreneurs were not as afraid when you compare us to the general population of getting out there, falling down. We get it out there realizing that perfect is the enemy of good.
I like to be perfect too. No.
Yeah, so do I. So do
kidding.
I. I mean, I'm coming from a music background. If you play a song and make one mistake, people know, and that's how you're judged in music school. That's how you're judged as a musician. It's something that I have to fight against. But in the general sense of things, I think that if you concentrate on perfection, if you look at all the little problems with something, you're never going to release it. If you wait for something to be perfect, the perfect time, the money that you need, anything, you're never going to do it. This podcast, it's not perfect. It's not perfect now, and we're getting better on this episode, number 55, than we were at episode 0. And that didn't stop us. That's not to say that it could have, and that's not to say that we didn't second guess ourselves, thinking, man, I shouldn't release this. But here we are.
If we were really focused on not doing bad, we wouldn't have put out a single episode. And it just wouldn't have happened because we would have been so focused on, ooh, what are people going to think? How's it going to come off? That's just not what you want to focus on.
Well, what is Red? Let's talk about that. What is it in your words, Laurel? That's in Table Topics number 2 for you.
Fortunately, I'm more practiced at this one. RED stands for Real Entrepreneur Development. RED is for speakers, bloggers, podcasters, coaches. If you have a message and you are looking to spread your message and make good money while doing it, RED is for you. We go over tips and strategies and everything that you need to be able to build your audience and spread your message across the world.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about how to manage email. On a previous episode, which is available at redpodcast.com/54, we talked about how to reduce email. You can't get it down to 0, though. You need email sometimes, and we'll talk about how to manage large volumes of it here. Show notes will be available at redpodcast.com/55. So any of the resources we're talking about, we got them linked there.
We talked about this last time a little bit, David, but the problem with email is that it can be overwhelming. It can absolutely zap your day. One instant you're going along, you're getting things done, and then you open your inbox and a couple hours are gone where you could have been doing more productive work. You could have been growing your business in better ways. And so this episode is really going to help you manage your time, manage your email, so you can focus on working on other things that are actually going to pay off a little more than just sitting there answering email all day.
The first thing that I do is I have 2 email addresses. One for personal, one for business. The personal stuff, like my mom's writing me, Laurel's writing me non-business stuff, I want to be able to handle those messages in a different way than I would people that are interested in working with me, people that might have a tech support question. They want to hear Red Podcast, but they don't know how to listen to it, or they've read something and they want to ask me a follow-up question. 2 different email addresses, I think, is a great start to handling your email. You can handle messages different time, different place, and you also don't have to go through the volume of work messages that you have to find the personal ones.
Do you have those 2 email addresses going to the same inbox? You talked about Gmail in the last episode, or do you have one in one inbox and one in another? How do you segment it?
Completely different. One of them is a web-based mail that anybody could sign up for free, just my name, and the other one has the domain names that I own, the business domain names.
So you check them on 2 completely different platforms.
2 completely different platforms, absolutely.
I think that's really helpful to segment because different emails have different priorities and they take different amounts of brain space or mental energy to deal with. And I think when you have them on different platforms, you can go to one platform and kind of know what you're going to get. You're going to get an email from your mom or your sister, or your brother, or something like that. As opposed to business email, you might want to be in a more business mindset when you open it up and check it.
Yeah, on that note, when I'm working on a book project, I have a computer that I have. All it is for writing. So when it really comes down to it and I've really got to get busy at writing, I've got a computer that has no games on it, nothing but a word processor, and all I do is write. I think that segmentation can help you in not just email, but in other parts of your business as well. You might want to think about that if you're having problems getting something done, if you're having problems getting into the right headspace for it. Not only the segmentation of computer programs or different computers, but the physical workspace that you have. That's why I believe in having a specific office just for your work and other parts of the house if you're working from home where you do no work.
Going back to email, the first thing that I do when I open my inbox, and I don't know if you do this, David, as well, but something that's been really effective for me is just scan the inbox for things that I can delete. Whether it's junk mail or something I'm not going to read, whatever that looks like, just get rid of everything that I don't need first and foremost.
That's exactly what I do, right? I will usually pull my email up on an iPad, download it on the iPad. It's got a great function. I type the edit button, check off just like a list, all the email messages that I don't want to read, that I've got nothing that I need from, and then I hit the trash button and literally 20, 30, 50 of them will go in the trash all at once.
Because it can be overwhelming when you open your inbox and hundreds of emails just pour in. That's kind of stressful for me. So I would go through them and just cut them in half or cut them down by 3/4. And that's just really helpful. A great way to start. It's almost refreshing when you go in there to do that.
Yeah, we talked about this in the previous episode, which again is at redpodcast.com/54. How to reduce email. And you can reduce email in this way as well. If it gets through to you, just taking it in one big pile, throwing it in the recycle bin, in the trash, whatever your email client has, and not having to deal with it at all. That's probably the most effective way to deal with it because it doesn't warrant a response. A lot of them are newsletters you haven't signed up for, or newsletters that you can't get off of, or as Laurel likes to say, Chinese bride ads.
I got one of those, and you mentioned it was Russian brides, but I got a Chinese bride.
Well, the Russians like me. I get the Russian brides.
I get the Chinese brides. She's waiting for me.
She's standing by her computer right now.
Exactly, ready to respond. Well, that's something as well that if you do get emails or junk mail or you're on lists that you can't get off of, I find that setting up filters is really effective. And you can set up filters in your inbox to send these different emails to separate mailboxes in your inbox. You can turn them different colors. You can send them straight to the trash like you do, David, with some of your emails. That's a really great way to manage email.
Yeah, if I can't get off a mailing list, I set up a filter that's just my junk filter. It goes straight to the trash can, never sees the inbox, and I never have to deal with it again. But I've got filters. We've talked on here before about Haro, which is at helpareporterout.com. Great service for people who are looking for people to interview or they need experts that they've got questions for. I've got all my Haro messages in one box. I've got different mailing lists in different boxes. Different email accounts. If I've got more than one business account, those go to different boxes. So filters are huge, huge, huge. You don't necessarily have to put them in different boxes. You can use them as different colors, different priorities. There are different ways you can sort things. But that will help you go through everything much more smoothly because of exactly what you were talking about earlier, in that I think that you have to be in a different mind space to deal with different types of emails. So if you've got more than one business, you can segment those, be in that business mind space, and then go to business B later. But it'll just help you handle everything much more efficiently because of that.
David, you have something that you do that's a quick and easy way to get back with people when they do contact you, when it's not junk mail, when you actually do have to respond, but you can give them kind of a shorter response. What do you do that makes that easier?
Well, I have found from thousands and thousands of messages over the years that the majority of people want just a very few things from me. It's definitely an 80-20, maybe a 90-10 rule in effect. One of those things that people want, for example, is they want an address because they want to send me music, they want to send me the book that they're working on, they just need to send some kind of package to me. So a canned response, for example, that would have your address in it. You don't have to type it. Hey, thanks for that. Here's my address. You just press one button and it puts the address in there. That's going to save you a lot of typing time. It's going to get back to them more quickly, and it's going to get you what you need more quickly.
So this is something you set up once in Gmail, and then you just send out these pre-scripted responses depending on what the email is.
Yeah, it could be like a tech support email. If you've got the same questions coming to you all the time, just write the email once. You can save that email, and you can automatically pull it up through a drop-down menu. You mentioned Gmail. Gmail does include this as part of their system. Other clients do as well. You've actually probably got that in the Macintosh mail that you use.
Actually, I don't know if it's in Mac Mail. It probably is, but I do something similar that's just as easy for me. When I write one of those pre-scripted emails, I just save a copy in my drafts folder, and I have maybe half a dozen emails in there. And when I need that pre-scripted response, I go into my drafts folder, copy it, and then paste it. So it maybe takes one more step there, so I'll have to look in to see if I can do that automatically.
But here's the bottom line. You're not having to write the same email again and again and again. It saves a few keystrokes. It saves a little bit of time. So any way that you do it, this can help you manage your email much more efficiently.
Something that I do that's effective to manage my email and also manage my stress level around emails, since I get so many emails, is I establish a set time to check email. And this is something that I do not do first thing in the morning. A lot of people get up and get on the computer and start responding. And if you do that, your day just is about other people, and you're not in control of it anymore. So I do my best work in the morning. I focus on getting priorities done then, and after lunch, I will open my inbox. So it's rare that anyone's ever going to get an email from me before noon, because that's just not how I work, and that's not the most efficient thing to do. But whatever you do, I find that establishing a set time to check email, say I check email once a day or twice a day, whatever that is for you, and have regular times to check email, helps you not let it take over your entire day and your entire life.
Laurel, that's a great piece of advice, not just for email, but for your life in general. I think that you don't want to be in a situation where you're constantly reacting to other people's problems. You've heard the phrase, I just put out fires. You don't want to do that. You want to be going and building something that won't burn down and put your time there. I think email is one of those things. Email, when you think about it, it's like a pipeline into your house, and you're giving everybody access to it. It's a pipeline into your business. It's a pipeline into your world. And by opening that pipeline up, you're letting all those people and all their problems come into your world. I think it's important for you to buckle down, do your work, and respond to other people on your time.
Yeah, make it in your time and your time frame. I sent out an email to a colleague the other day asking a question to them that I needed an answer on, but I didn't give any sort of deadline. And I get a text message because this person was at work saying, got your email, I'm going to get back to you. There was a lot of pressure for her to respond that I didn't put on her. And I think if we're so used to responding immediately and feel like we have to respond to people, we're just giving away our power. I mean, we're giving away our time, our mental energy. Know that when someone sends you an email, it's on your time frame to respond to them. That doesn't mean you slack off and you never respond or you're not prompt with your response, but there's no rule out there that you have to respond in the next hour or in the next 5 hours to somebody else. Make it on your time. Make it work within your schedule.
You have to set the boundaries. I'll give a great example right now, and this is what I do with my phone. Feel free to call me right this instant, 615-460-9595. That's my phone number, 615-460-9595. It's a real phone. I don't even have any idea where the phone is. We moved here a year ago, Laurel. I don't know where the phone is. It's in a box somewhere because I never answer the phone. I call you back. I call you back on my time. Don't let somebody else's problems become your problems. Don't let somebody else's time leach into your time. You're the boss. You're in charge. Get back to them. But I agree with what you said, Laurel. You can't just keep people hanging on the line for 6 months or a year. I think there's some kindness that you can do them by being somewhat reasonable at responding to them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be instant. We live in this microwave society where people have gotten used to having somebody pick up the phone whenever and wherever they are. Unfortunately, what that has done is that has caused people to learn bad habits. They call anytime. Don't do that. That's one of the reasons, Laurel, that I don't respond to people after business hours. Have you ever had that happen where somebody will send you an email and you want to handle it right away because you're very efficient? You'll send something back and then they send something back and it becomes more like a chat room than an email sequence.
Yeah, that just sends the wrong message to people that you're working all the time, that you're available all the time, which you're not. Your time is worth something and it's really valuable. And you can't, again, just be hanging out waiting for other people and building your day around other people.
So don't respond to people right away. Don't respond to people after the work hours that you've established. Gmail has a thing, speaking of Gmail, and I think this works on other email clients as well. It's called Boomerang. Have you seen this, Laurel?
I haven't seen that.
Boomerang is great because what you can do is you can set your emails to where they are sent after you actually send them. You could send them the next day. You could send them at random times. It can follow up with you if you want. It's really, really great. And it's one of those things where it doesn't have to be instant. That's one of the things that I didn't like about Gmail when I first started using it. When I was using these mail clients like Eudora or Outlook Express or Entourage, you could put your email in a box in a to-send folder and you could send them all the next morning. You could send them all at once. But Gmail is instant, so this solves that problem, and it keeps people from emailing you back right away and doing things after business hours or just generally getting into these bad habits of teaching people that you're available whenever they want and they can expect an instant response.
Another thing you can do is if people are contacting you or your business through some sort of online form, maybe they're on your website and going to your contact page and contacting you that way, you can put something on there, put a note on there. We respond to emails within 48 hours or within 3 business days or something like that. So you set expectations in advance of when you're going to get back with these people, because there's no real etiquette around email. Peggy Post has not written that etiquette book that I am aware of. So you want to set guidelines for when you respond to people. And that way, the people that are contacting you aren't going to worry about it, aren't going to think that you're being rude or anything like that, because you've set up expectations.
Or your guidelines could be that, hey, I get a lot of emails. I'm not always able to get back with people at all. So if you don't hear back from me, it's not personal. I'm just extremely busy. You can make your guidelines and your rules whatever you want them to be. We talked about on the previous episode, redpodcast.com/54. I like to send people to Twitter. And maybe instead of promising a response, you let them know, hey, I'll get back to you, but if you want a quicker response or a guaranteed response, Twitter is a much better way to do it. Here's my Twitter handle.
And as long as you're setting up those expectations, people are going to go with that. They're going to go with the rules that you set.
So in general, you are in control. Email is a very good thing, but it can get overwhelming. There's some great tools that you can use. First of all, we recommend that you reduce the email and the number of messages that you're working with. Again, redpodcast.com/54 for how to do that. But if you must get email, and if some of it trickles through, what we've talked about is what we recommend for managing email. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, here's Laurel's email address.
Haha.
All right, we're available via Twitter at The Red Podcast. That's our name. And if you want to get us via the web, redpodcast.com is how to do it. Thank you for listening. If you found this podcast helpful, you like listening to Red Podcast, we would appreciate if you would help us to build the community of real entrepreneurs by going to iTunes, search for Red Podcast, leave us a review. When you do that, we come up in the search engine results more easily, more often. People can find us better, and we can build this community. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Red Podcast.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, Real Entrepreneur Development. Subscribe today using iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.